Florida a couple years ago. He called me up and he said, I want you to come and speak to the Navy Special Warfare Foundation dinner. Can't pay anything, can't even pay your gas. I can give you a nice hotel room, got to drive yourself down. Now, I'd read the reports about what our Navy SEALs and special operators did in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I wrote out every single word of my speech because I knew if I did not write it out, I couldn't deliver it. Because I was in a room of heroes, of great men who serve and sacrifice for our country. So I go down for the event. And my buddy comes up to me and he says, there's a guy here who wants to meet you. He says he's a huge fan of yours, loves you on Fox, big political guy, loves to read about you, reads your Wall Street Journal columns, he'd love to meet you. I said, I'd be honored. He said, he's a SEAL. I said, I'd be honored to. He said, well, I want to warn you, he's hard to look at. He was shot 8 times in Iraq. He's gone through 22 operations. I said, I'd love to meet him. Guy comes up and he's sort of hard to look at. Missing part of his cheek and his nose. Had all kinds of operations to put his face back together. And I was expecting to hear some guy who was sitting there and feel sorry for himself and pitying himself. And I met a guy who was outgoing and charismatic and bold and funny. The guy was unbelievably great. He said, I love seeing you on television, man. Give that Alan Colmes a hard time every time you're on. I said, well, how are you doing with this? He says, I'm doing great. He says, I've had 22 operations and I've been operated on by the best in the world. He said, if you're a SEAL, the best in the world want to operate on you so they can brag about it afterwards. I said, what else you got coming up? He said, well, I'm going to Chicago this week. They're going to rebuild my cheek and my nose. Had a big piece of plastic on the side of his face. He said, I was just trying to show that I could catch a bullet with my teeth. He said, I said, how much longer do you have to go on then? He said, well, I got 2 more procedures, I think, and then I'm back in the game. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, yeah, I'm back in the game. He said, my team's gone to Afghanistan and they need me. I need to go to Afghanistan next. Here's a guy who got shot 8 times and he wants to go back into combat with his team. He says, I'd like you to meet my wife. I can't tell you his name, I can't tell you her name, but he says, I want you to meet my wife. Brings her up. He goes off to get a drink. He told me, he said, I want you to meet my wife. He said, she's really special. He said, when I met her, which I think was in a bar. He said, the first words I told her were, run away. And when she didn't run away, I knew she was special. So she comes up. She's wonderful. And he wanders off to get a drink. And I said, is it true? She says, oh, yeah. He rolls her eyes. I said, yeah, it's true. He told me to run away, and I did. I said, have you ever felt like you wanted to run away? And she said, nah, after the 3rd kid I did, but I told him it wasn't him, it was the kids. I said, I don't mean to pry, but how do you feel about what he wants to do? And she said, I am all for it. This is what he was made for. This is what he is put on this earth to do. And he wants to do it, and I'm for it. And I almost cried. I gave my speech, shook hands, and got the heck out of there. Because these were great people, and it was powerful to be around them. The next day, my nutty friend sent me a JPEG, and I carry it with me, because I don't want to forget that guy. This is the sign he had on his door in Baghdad, in his hospital room, and he took his Navy Trident SEAL emblem and jammed it in to keep the piece of paper on the door. And it says the following, and it's a reminder of what this week is really all about our rights and freedoms. He said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming into this room with sorrow or to feel sorry for my wounds, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job I love, doing it for people I love, supporting the freedoms of a country I deeply love. I am incredibly tough and will make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physically my body has the ability to recover. Then I will push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you're not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And he signed it, the management. Now, if we ever want to think about what's really important, I think it's worth remembering Bill and Chris Kristoff and their sons Austin and Nathan, and I think it's worth remembering this kid, 26 years old, serving our country like that. We have these freedoms because somebody decided to enshrine them in our Constitution. A 5'2" little guy from Orange County, Virginia, named James Madison. He wrote them. We did it because the founders had the foresight to enshrine them in the Constitution. We have them because successive presidents and successive Supreme Courts and successive Congresses have protected and enhanced them. And because we went through an awful conflict that took many of the rights of our Constitution and the Bill of Rights and made them real in the lives of people who before that conflict had no rights. It is an expression of our country, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today as you celebrate the First Amendment and our Bill of Rights. Thank you.